You were told you could be anything, but you were born with skin that made that a lie before you could speak. You mastered every room you entered, but never felt like you belonged in any of them. They called you articulate, clean, presidential. But what they really meant was, you scare us less than the others. You weren't allowed to be average, or angry, or tired. You had to be perfect, just to be accepted. This is what it costs to become the symbol of progress in a country built on pretending it already changed. This is what it's like to be born as Barack Obama. You were told you could be anything, but before you ever spoke, your skin said something louder. You were born in a place that was supposed to be paradise, Hawaii, but to a world that still sorted people by pigment, not potential. Your father was black, your mother was white, and you were neither, not fully, and never enough for either. You didn't belong, not really. Not in Indonesia, where you lived with roosters and rainwater. Not in Kansas, where your grandparents raised you while you tried to be invisible in your own skin. And not in America, where you'd spend your entire life explaining your name before anyone asked what you believed. They say pressure makes diamonds. But that's only true if the pressure doesn't crush you first. You learn early to shape yourself into something safe. You become soft around the edges. You read what others miss. You smile when you're unsure. You carry yourself like a question that's already answered. You're not allowed to mess up, because if you do, the world says, "See? We knew it." So you overcorrect. You study. You organize. You lead. But it doesn't matter how smart you are. They still pronounce your name like it's a threat. You walk into rooms filled with Harvard law grads, and they still look at you like you cheated the system that built them. And then, you speak. And for a moment, the room listens. Because your voice is calm, but it cuts. You don't shout, you don't posture, you just speak. And it feels like America's been waiting for someone like you. Someone who can turn a sentence into a sermon, someone who can carry the weight without flinching. But here's the part they don't tell you. The moment you become hope, you stop being a person. You become a symbol, a projection, a mirror people use to see what they want. And symbols don't get to crack. They don't get days off, they don't get to bleed, they just carry. When you run for president, you're told it's impossible. Too young, too black, too other. But you keep going. You make the impossible look easy. Crowds scream your name in stadiums. People cry just hearing you speak. You promise change, and they believe you. Yes, we can. 3 words that turn into a movement, a tidal wave, a miracle. But miracles have consequences. January 20th, 2009. You raise your hand. You become the 44th President of the United States, the first black man to ever step into that office. And behind your smile, something breaks. You walk into the White House, a place built by slaves. And you're expected to fix everything they broke before you. The economy is burning, wars are still raging, healthcare is broken. Racism isn't just alive, it's humming under every floorboard. But there's no room for mistakes. Not for you. Because if you fall, they say we all fall. You're not just the president, you're the test case. The question America's been avoiding since it was born. Can a black man lead this country without it tearing itself apart? Every decision you make is a negotiation with history. If you go too hard, you're angry. Too soft, you're weak. You fight for healthcare, but they call it socialism. You save the auto industry, but they call it government overreach. You kill bin Laden, and still they say you're un-American. And through it all, you stay composed. Always composed. Because if you show rage, if you show frustration, if you even look tired, they'll say you were never ready. So you carry it in silence. But it's not silent in your head. It's not quiet at 3:42 a.m. when you're reading casualty reports. When you're deciding which lives get saved and which ones become statistics. When you have to write letters to mothers who will never see their sons again. And all the while, you're raising 2 daughters who are being watched like zoo animals by a media machine, hungry for cracks in the facade. You dance. You laugh. You sing Al Green at fundraisers. You make jokes at the correspondence dinner, because the moment you stop smiling, America gets uncomfortable. But your smiles cost something. Trayvon Martin dies, and they want to know what you think. Not as a father, not as a man, but as a black president. So you say, "He could have been my son." And the country freezes. That sentence, simple, human, becomes a grenade. Exploded across headlines, torn apart on talk shows. And from then on, every word is a weapon you have to disarm before speaking. Ferguson, Baltimore, Charleston. The names pile up like bodies. And every time, they ask you to say something to stop the fire. But you can't. Because fire doesn't listen to speeches. It only listens to justice. You give the world 8 years of no scandals, 8 years of intelligence, 8 years of slow, careful, strategic progress. You help pass marriage equality. You lead through Ebola, Sandy Hook, the Paris attacks. You win the Nobel Peace Prize just for existing in that office without burning it down. And yet, at the end, they still say you didn't do enough. Where's the change? They forget how hard it was just to survive the job. They forget how many people tried to tear you down from day one. The birther lies, the racial dog whistles, the obstruction, the threats, the nooses, the bombs, the guns, the coded language, the backlash. You held it all. But when you leave office, the world doesn't move forward. It snaps back. The man who replaces you is a mirror flipped inside out, loud, cruel, proudly ignorant, a walking erasure of everything you built. You watch it unfold, powerless. You stay quiet, because if you speak up, they'll say you're bitter. You watch them undo your legacy piece by piece while pretending it was never yours to begin with. And still, you don't break. But here's what nobody sees. You age faster than any president in modern history. Your hair grays, your eyes sink, your voice slows. Because holding up a country that never really wanted to see you rise, it breaks you quietly, from the inside out. You're Barack Obama, a son of two worlds, a man of too many expectations, a president who couldn't afford to be human, a symbol made of flesh. You gave them your spine, your smile, your silence, and they still wanted more. And even now, years later, they still ask, "Do you miss being president?" You smile, you nod, you deflect. But what you want to say is this: do you know what it feels like to carry 300 million people on your back and still feel alone? Because that's what it's like, to be born as Barack Obama.